Hello students, welcome to our online video tutorial class. I think the previous videos based on the chapter Reproduction in Organisms you have already seen. So after that chapter there is a next chapter which is present in our syllabus, that is Sexual Reproduction in Flowering Plant. So based on that specific chapter I am starting today. In this specific chapter, first of all we have to discuss about the structure of the flower, then we will be discussing about the structure of anther, pollen sac, pollen grain, how the pollen grain is forming, as well as how the ovules are forming within the ovary structure, ovule structure and so on, pollination, outbreeding devices. These all things we have to discuss in this specific chapter. So let's start with a new chapter, that is the sexual reproduction in flowering plant. First of all, in this specific chapter we have to discuss about the flower structure. Already I have told you. So first start with the flower structure. I have drawn the structure of the flower in the left hand side, and after that each and every points I have shown here and I have described also. So one by one point I will be just describing you. First thing is that when we will be starting with the structure of the flower, first of all we have to see whatever the mother axis. This is the main stem or the mother axis. Okay. From there a small branch which has been projected towards outside. This is the small branch. From that specific branch the flower is connected. Clear? So first of all we have to keep it in our mind that the small branch or the minute branch which is connected with the mother stem or mother axis, in that specific junctional point two small leaf-like structures are actually projecting outward. These two leaf-like structures are commonly which are projecting outward. They are known as bract. Again I am repeating, the small stem, it's not the stem of the flower, the small stem with which the flower is connected. That specific stem, when it is connected with the mother axis or mother stem, in that junctional point few leaf-like structures or two leaf-like structures are present, and those leaf-like structures are commonly known as bract. Now the point is, if the bract can be found in any case of flowering plant, on that time those flowers are commonly known as bracteate. If the bract is present, then the flower is commonly known as bracteate. If the bract is absent in case of any flower, on that time that is commonly known as ebracteate. So these points we have to keep remembering, that if the bract is present, then it is known as, that flower is known as bracteate flower. If the flower, that bract is absent in any of the flower, then it is commonly known as ebracteate flower. Moving for the next point, that is, after this small branch, we can see here the flower is connected with the small branch by a stalk-like structure that is commonly known as pedicel. And one more point we have to keep it in our mind, that in between the small branch and pedicel there is a small node-like structure where actually that pedicel is attached. In that specific node-like structure also two leaf-like structures we can see. These two leaf-like structures I am talking about, those are commonly known as bracteole. Now based on bracteole also, if it is present in any of the flower, that flower is commonly known as bracteolate flower, and if it is absent in any of the flower, commonly on that time it is known as ebracteolate flower. Like the bract, you can remember the bracteole. Now pedicel, already I have told you, that is a small stalk of the flower that is commonly known as pedicel. Now the point is, based on this pedicel also we have classified the flower. If the pedicel is present, on that time that flower is called as pedicellate flower. If that pedicel is present but short in shape or short in size, on that time that flower is commonly known as subsessile flower. And if that pedicel is totally absent, on that time it is commonly known as sessile flower. So that means based on the presence as well as absence or partial presence, we have categorized the flowers into three different categories. Pedicellate if it is totally present. Next, if it is present in small size, on that time it is subsessile, or if it is totally absent, on that time it is commonly known as sessile flower. Now we are coming for the next part of the flower, that is the lower portion of the calyx. That specific portion is commonly known as thalamus or receptacle. This thalamus or receptacle portion is actually holding the entire petals of the flower. Based on this thalamus or receptacle, no classification of the flower we have to study. Now we are moving for the next point. Now we are starting out with the floral holes. We all know that the flower, any kind of flower, is composed of the four holes or four layers rather. If the flower is true flower or ideal flower, on that time these four layers or four holes are all present. In case of incomplete flower, if the flower is not complete, on that time any of the hole can be absent. So let's see whatever the first hole from outside. First hole is that calyx. We can see here the calyx, this is the calyx and this is the first hold. Always keep it in your mind, this calyx is made up of some small units. 4 to 5 small units are just connecting with each other and making this specific floral hold. And that specific unit is commonly known as sepal. Now the point is, these sepals are united or free. Based on that also we have classified the flower. If the sepals are united, on that time the flower is commonly known as gamosepalous flower. Gamo means united. From the word gamy, fusion or united, the gamo word has come. And the second point is that if the sepals are free, on that time that specific type of flower is known as polysepalous. Poly means multiple and they are free. That's why they are not known as polysepalous. So calyx is the first outermost unit, the outermost hold, and each and every unit of that specific hold is commonly known as, that is, sepal. And if the sepals are united, then it is known as gamosepalous. If the sepals are not united, free, then it is commonly known as polysepalous. Next point is that after calyx, the next hold is corolla. In case of corolla, we can see that corolla is the next layer which is protected by the calyx from outside. And this corolla is made up of multiple units and those are commonly known as petals. Always keep it in your mind, these calyx or sepals are mostly green in color because they are containing chloroplast, they can perform photosynthesis. But these corolla and petals, these are colorful, they can attract insects for the pollination. So the petals, which are the unit of the corolla, now if the petals you are categorizing, on that time if the petals are just associated with each other, on that time automatically they are known as gamopetalous. If the petals are not associated with each other, they are free like the sepals, on that time they are known as polypetalous. So like the sepal, petals are also categorized based on their fusion or based on they are free. Next, the two main reproductive hold present in the plant, that is the male reproductive part, that is commonly known as androecium or stamen, and the female reproductive part, that is commonly known as gynoecium or pistil, okay, or carpel also you can say. Now the point is, before going to the reproductive point, here 2 to 3 points I have written, please note it down or you just see this one carefully. In case of some of the flowers, it is found that the sepal and petal both are associated, they are not present separately. So that specific structure is commonly known as perianth. Next, if in case of any flower, it can be seen that sepals, green colored sepals are colorful like the petals, sepal petal like. On that time that specific structure is known as petaloid. If the sepals are colorful like petals, on that time that is known as petaloid. And if the petals are colorful like sepal, on that time that is commonly known as cephaloid. So these specific terminologies also we have to keep it in our mind, that if the sepal is petal-like, then it is known as petaloid. On that time sepals are colorful, and if the petals are sepal-like, that is petals are green in color, they can perform photosynthesis like the sepals, so they are commonly known as cephaloid. Okay, and when the sepal and petal both are united in any case of any of the flower, then it is known as perianth. Except those points also we have to keep it in our mind, these points which is regarding our male and female reproductive part of the flower. Suppose you are getting any flower where male and female both reproductive parts are present. Obviously on that time it is commonly known as bisexual flower or hermaphrodite flower. And the next point is that in case of any of the flower, if you see that only the stamen, only the male part is present, that specific flower is commonly known as staminate flower. If you see any of the flower which is only containing the pistil or the female reproductive part, that is commonly known as pistillate flower. So staminate, if the stamen is present only, pistil is not present, and if pistillate, that is the pistil is present, stamen is not present. Next, sterile stamen. If any flower is containing sterile stamen, on that time that flower will be known as a staminode flower. It's not staminate, on that time it will be staminode. And if any flower is containing sterile pistil or sterile carpel or sterile gynoecium, then that flower is commonly known as pistillode. So these points always keep it in your mind. Pistillate means pistil present in any flower, stamen is not there. But pistillode means sterile pistil. As well as staminate means stamen present in any of the flower, pistil is not there. But staminode means sterile stamen. So these points please keep it in your mind, these are very important regarding male and female reproductive part. Next, I am moving to the structure of androecium and anther. Here there is a male reproductive part, whatever I have discussed or I am discussing. Here the main two parts we can see in case of any of the male reproductive part or the androecium. First one, that is the anther. This portion is commonly known as anther, and this portion is commonly known as filament. Okay. Anther is made up of two anther lobes. Anther lobes means round shaped or oval shaped, two lobes are present within the anther. That's why they are commonly known as anther lobes. And due to presence of these two lobe-like structures, sometimes anthers are commonly known as or commonly called as bithegus. Bithegus means two lobe structure, two layered structure. That's why it is commonly known as bithegus. Keep it in your mind, both of the anther lobes are connected with each other by a small, narrow, bridge-like structure, which is commonly known as connective. Due to presence of that connective only, both of the anther lobes are connected with each other. And another more important point is that from that connective only, a stalk-like structure which is coming outside, and that stalk-like structure is only filament. Next, most important thing is that within each and every anther lobe, two round shaped structure I have drawn here. You can see the diagram here because I have drawn it in a large manner. So these sac-like structures or these specific vesicle-like structures you can see within the anther lobe, each and every anther lobe. These are commonly known as pollen sacs, within which the pollen grains are developing, and after rupturing those pollen sacs or after rupturing those anthers, those pollen grains will be just dispersed out. So the pollen grains are commonly getting developed within those specific pollen sacs which are round in shape. And we have already seen this is the entire anther lobe structure, and this is the upper part of the anther lobe I have drawn here. Here also in between these two anther lobes, this connectivity is present. Another more important information is that due to presence of two anther lobes, commonly it is known as dithegus or bithegus. As well as you can write also each and every anther lobe is made up of two pollen sacs. For that reason also the anthers are commonly known as bithegus or dithegus. From that respect also you can say bithegus or dithegus. So each and every androecium is made up of two anther lobes. That's why they are bithegus. As well as each anther lobe is made up of two pollen sacs. That's why also they can be called as bithegus. So these are the anther lobe structure. This is the entire structure of the androecium. So this is the total part whatever I have just taught you in this video. That is the entire structure of the flower, various parts of the flower, that is bracts, bracteole, pedicel, thalamus or receptacle, calyx, each and every unit, that is sepal, then corolla, each and every unit, that is petal, and then male and female reproductive part, that is androecium and gynoecium. About the male reproductive part I have discussed here. Female reproductive part I will be discussing in the next videos. Next I have talked about if the bract is present, what should be the type of flower. If it is absent, what should be the type of flower. Bracteate and ebracteate. In case of bracteole also same thing. If it is present, then it is known as bracteolate. If it is absent, ebracteolate. Next, in case of pedicel also, that is the stalk of the flower. That also same. If the pedicel is present, then it is known as pedicellate. If it is present but short in size, on that time it is subsessile. And if it is totally absent, on that time the flower is called as sessile. In case of sessile flower, directly this calyx portion or the thalamus portion is connected with the bracteole portion. If the sepals are united in case of any flower, then it is known as gamosepalous. If it is free, on that time it is known as polysepalous. If you consider petal also like that, on that time petals, if they are united, then it is known as gamopetalous. And if they are free, on that time they are known as polypetalous. Going forward, next point, if the sepal and petal both are united with each other, on that time they are known as perianth. Perianth can be found in few flowers, not all. If sepal is petal-like, colorful, on that time that specific flower is known as petaloid. And if the petal is greenish, like the sepal, on that time it is known as sepaloid. Clear? Next point, if you talk about the male and female reproductive part of the flower, they are also flower with the stamen, then it is known as staminate. But flower with sterile stamen, on that time it is known as staminote. If the flower is containing only pistil, on that time that is called as pistillate. But if the flower is containing sterile pistil, on that time it is known as pistilote. And if the flower is containing both reproductive parts, that is commonly known as, or that flower is known as bisexual flower or hermaphrodite flower. So this is the total part whatever I have discussed about the flower. Next we have discussed about the structure of androecium, which is commonly containing two parts. One is anther and filament. Anther is made up of two lobes, anther lobes, and due to presence of two, that is commonly known as bithegus. If you see the structure in a large manner, manner. Each and every anther lobe is made up of two sac-like structures which are commonly known as pollen sac. Within each and every pollen sac, pollen grains are actually present, and those pollen grains are coming out when the pollen grains are totally get developed during the time of pollination. And these two, due to presence of two pollen sacs within each and every anther lobe, that specific structure can be also called as bithecous anther. And both of the anther lobes are connected with by the help of connective, and from the connective one stalk-like structure is just coming down, that is commonly known as filament. So this is the overall structure of the flower and the structure of the male reproductive part we have discussed in this video. I think you have understood this video entirely and you have enjoyed this video a lot. Thank you everyone.